Today we're reacting to a really hot band. Right now, they're kind of having a comeback, and also one of my favorite bands of all time, easily in my top 10, especially for their ethics. We're reacting to Smells Like Teen Spirit, and it's my first time ever seeing this music video, besides maybe snippets in a Beavis and Butthead clip. Let's give this a watch. Ready? Okay, right off the bat, I'm struck by the guitar tone. As I've said, I've heard the song before. I love the band, and the music video is new to me, but I definitely am struck by that guitar tone, and I always have been. Does that not sound so modern? I think it was the Slayer producer who produced this one. And fuck, dude. He came in the middle of the night. I know it was with somebody else, like some no-name guy, who they'd been going to, and apparently the track sounded like shit, so the guy called him and was like, yo, can you do whatever you do to those guitars? And holy shit, I don't even know if Green Day has better sounding guitars, you know? There's no more modern sound to a distorted power chord than this, man. I mean, they sound like they came out yesterday, you know, today. I love the way that Kurt Cobain controlled his body so seamlessly, where he looks like almost like he's edging towards you in a very like threatening manner. It's still very like contained, and it almost reminds you of like, well, is this guy about to, you know? That's what it leaves you with, is what's he about to do, you know? And he's always kind of edging into the camera and then pulling back and then edging in, and he does it in this way that, holy shit, I mean, it's so threatening yet so vulnerable. And that is really weird. And that's what made Nirvana cool. They were threatening and vulnerable at the same time. Holy shit. The energy. I saw an article recently that was talking about the energy of live shows and how, you know, maybe first there was Jimi Hendrix, and then there was Van Halen, and then there was Nirvana, and then maybe Jack White, you can maybe say. But like, no matter what, there's always been these guys who come along with so much energy that it just breaks the game, and it changes the way that music is looked at, especially rock and roll. And I'm sure it happens in hip-hop too, if you think about it. You've got, you know, first there's Tupac and Biggie, and then next there's like Eminem, and then next there's Kanye, and then next now there's some other stuff, and it's just crazy, man. The people come through and they just shatter what the genre was ever even envisioned to be, just from that energy, the way that he throws himself into it. You can tell that, it's just so divine, the purpose behind it. Is it just me, or does that drummer look like the singer from Foo Fighters? I'm kidding. I'm fucking with you. Dude, this line right here. I think people skip over this line and they don't understand it. I totally understand it. As a punk rock musician, like, he believed he was pretty much the reincarnation of Sid Vicious, right? I mean, he checked into hotel rooms as Simon Ritchie, which is the real name of Sid Vicious. And, and he dated Courtney Love. He was basically reenacting what Sid Vicious did with, what's her name? And so what happened was, that line to me is so profound into a look into his psychology. I'm worst at what I do best. Sid Vicious couldn't even play the bass. Kurt Cobain could barely even play the guitar. But Kurt Cobain was so smart. He practiced, apparently, secretly, 10 hours a day. Especially, like, just playing the songs over and over and locking them in like AC/DC. And you know what's funny about it is, a line like that makes it sound like he's more of a chaotic and non-practicing character who's just a genius, which mystifies people. It makes people obsessed with him. And it's really a facade, which then once you figure that out, it loses a little allure, but it makes you even more curious, And that's what's so genius about it. It's like, wow, this guy was a true, mastermind in a lot of ways. That's what I really think of. If you look at him at face value, you think, well, this burned out junkie. If you look at him as once you read his biography and you start to understand his life, true mastermind of understanding the game of Hollywood. Does anybody have a better vocal in rock and roll? And yet a worse vocal in rock and roll? Does anybody have either? That's why I love Kurt Cobain. You watch live footage and it's like, wow, he might be the worst singer of all time. And you listen to a studio track and you're like, he might be the best singer of all time. And both are true. You're not wrong. That's why this guy is he's blown away what we ever thought rock and roll could be. And it hasn't really evolved much since. Really, honestly, that's what's most amazing. This happened in the 90s, dog. Think about it. In the 60s, there was the Beatles. In the 70s, there was Aerosmith and Led Zeppelin. And in the 80s, there was Van Halen. And in the 90s, there was Nirvana. And in the 2000s, there was a bunch of people trying to be Nirvana. And in the 2010s, there's a bunch of people trying to be Nirvana. And in the 2020s, there's a bunch of people trying to be Nirvana. What the fuck? I think it was effortless. You look at this and it looks so effortless. And that's what's so genius about Kurt Cobain, is that, like I said earlier, it's so effortful. He put so much work into this, but he never was attached to the outcome. And maybe the heroin helped. Maybe some sort of divine wisdom and enlightenment helped. I don't know. But for whatever reason, he had put all this work in, and he was never even attached to the outcome. And it comes across in his body language, his playing, his singing, and everything. It's like he doesn't even care. And I don't know if a person can achieve that, And then naming it Nirvana is just like a giant irony within itself, because if you're looking at fucking Buddhism, you realize that's all about detachment, And it's like, well, that's a head fuck. And part of me thinks this guy was just such a genius, he knew exactly how to head fuck everybody. Which makes him a scumbag. That's the deepest irony of the whole thing. So I may have only seen the Weird Al Yankovic and the fucking Beavis and Butthead versions of this music video, but I was still aware of the fact that reading biographies about Kurt Cobain, he apparently honestly wanted all the cheerleaders to be obese. That was one of his plans, and the record company refused. So in that way, he was very ahead of his time. He was saying, I want it to be clear that this is a bunch of vain bullshit. And they said no. They said, we need these cheerleaders to be skinny and hot, because otherwise audience won't grab on. Well, look at today. Look at today. That's what they're fighting for still. And they're already making headway in terms of fat phobia and stuff like that. And I think Kurt Cobain was trying to illustrate that, and trying to illustrate the real discrepancy between who we worship and who is maybe, actually doing the work.
And I forget just why today, so yeah, I guess it makes me smile. I found it hard, it's hard to find a well, whatever, never mind.
That's the line that mystified me most. I found it hard. It's hard to find. Oh, well, whatever. Never mind. And it's the total... Again, it just feels like you're being fucked with by a Dennis. It's like fucking Dennis-y, like from fucking Always Sunny in Philadelphia sometimes, because he's so manipulative with his lyrics. The way that he names the album Nevermind, and then that's the most mystifying lyric in his hit song. Fuck you, dude. Like, I love you, but fuck you. I think Iggy Pop described this band best, and he said that watching them live was like watching a troll that had came out from under a bridge and was going to play you a song. Which, by the way, who wouldn't want to see that? Somehow he managed to take the feminine energy from the 80s rock, which was also combined with like this incredibly masculine vibe, right? And he was able to take that, and he was able to blend that with some sort of a dirty troll vibe that Black Sabbath maybe had in the 70s, and say like, hey, I can take your femininity and make it more dirty, and I can take your masculinity and make it more macho. Watch me. Pretty cool. Yeah, so basically, without having seen the video, I already knew that it was exactly what I expected, which is he's the Jesus Christ of punk rock, right? He's really the martyr who came down and said, yo, this is the way to make this more ethical, but at the same time more disturbing. And to actually change the game. And nobody has come down and had a rebuttal yet. Nobody's had a valid rebuttal because the game hasn't really changed much since then, which is why I think the genre died. Somebody kind of said the last word on that. It was kind of like, well, what are you going to do? And everybody's just repeated it. It's like, it's time that we take our martyrs and kill them, is what I would say. If I'm being real, you have to look at Kurt Cobain and say, well, what were his flaws? It's hard to find him in his ethics, but if you can, I think that you could be the next rock and roll star. If you can. Because basically what happened was, well, that ended rock and roll, and on we go to hip-hop and pop. But we all know that there's a rebuttal left to be made. We just don't know how to do it. Let's find out if anybody does. If anybody knows the rebuttal, leave it below in the comments. In the meantime, if you're watching this and you're wondering if that's what you should be working on as an artist, you should. Cheers, you guys. Thanks.